Ready, go. 3, 2, 1.
Good evening. My name is Bruce Deutsch. I'm here on behalf of the Committee to Recall Leslie Wild. This is an event that's being put on in anticipation of the election on June 3rd, where we all have a chance to replace somebody that we feel is unfit for office. So what we did was we gathered together 3 of the candidates who we believe represent an alternative to Councilwoman Wild. These 3 individuals have declared their candidacy or on the ballot, and we want to make sure in the short time we have between now and Tuesday to give everybody on the web a chance to know these folks. A couple of things to point out. If you want more information on this, you can go to Facebook group Dunsmuir Political Forum and Cocktail Hour. And we'll probably put a little scrawl underneath that for that, but you'll get a chance to get more information. So with that in mind, what we're going to do is we'll start off each candidate. We'll have a 3-minute chance to introduce him or herself and to give a brief bio, and also to let us know why they are running for City Council. At the end, before Mr. Castro has to leave, he has to leave a little early, we'll give everyone a chance to have a 2-minute summation, a last-minute thing they'd like to say, and then if we have time, we'll continue a little bit further with the other 2 candidates. So with that in mind, I'd like to introduce the 3 candidates. First, we have on the far left, Dick Kelby. Then we have Linda Nasa. And then we have Lorenzo Castro. We've decided to go in order, starting left to right, and then after each question, we'll rotate a little bit so each person gets a chance to get the first question and the last question, etc. So with that in mind, without taking up any more time, I'd like to introduce Mr. Kelby and ask him to introduce himself and why he's running for council.
Good afternoon. I'm glad everyone came. And to all those on the web, I'm very glad that you're watching. My name is Dick Kelby, and I am a native Dunsmuirite, or Dunsmuirian, however you want to pronounce it. Anyway, I was born and raised here, attended all the schools, went off to college, ended up getting married, and spent most of my life finding a good place to earn enough money to return and retire in Dunsmuir, which I did officially I started around 2000 and have been here consistently since 2005. I won't tell you when I first started back when I was a youngster, but there it is. In my existence, most of my life has been devoted to public service. I have been involved in many activities like reserve police officer that we've spent about 20 hours on the street. If anybody read my bio, they'd realize that I actually retired after 10 years at a 100% of the contribution made, which is a very rare thing, especially if it's a volunteer organization and is nothing. So I'm very happy to do that. I've been involved with the Coast Guard Auxiliary, been involved in training and vessel examinations. And are you holding up something to say I have? Okay, thank you. And when I came to Dunsmuir, I decided to do something for this community because I just absolutely love this town. So I applied for and was accepted and appointed to the Planning Commission, of which I have spent just over 5 years. In the last 2 years, I have been the chair. I've been involved in almost all the activities, following all the training programs given to me, and suddenly got to the point where I looked at the city council and said, we need a person on that city council that is not either left nor right, that doesn't belong to either one of the groups, that has no personal agenda. I'm retired. I really don't care about my personal agendas. So that's why I decided I had better step in, and I want to help this community, and that's what I'm here for.
Thank you, Mr. Kelby. Ms. Nasa.
My name is Linda Nasa, and I'm Swiss Italian. I talk with my hands, but it doesn't work, you know. But anyways, I'm Californian. I'm born and raised in Salinas. I've spent 28 years as a medic with the International Red Cross. All of that and said and been and done, you know, I can talk about my childhood and all that other thing, who I am here today. I showed up here in Dunsmuir, September 16th, 2011, I believe, with the idea that I didn't want to get involved. One of the things in my career, I have seen a lot of ugly. I've been around the world, and yet I've seen a lot of ugly in our country here with crystal meth is my personal agenda that it needs to go. I couldn't believe it. You know, I thought, hey, here's Dunsmuir, a place that I had found with a late partner of mine who died of breast cancer. And I said someday if I ever came back to California, I'd come back here. When I did and I saw it was here, I couldn't turn my head. That's what started me on, and the politics when I saw the town giving up on themselves and not fighting back. I thought, oh no, can't see this. You know, one of the things of being with the International Red Cross, we don't just go out and sit there for, you know, and get the gleam and glory, okay, we saved your life, then we help rebuild the town to somewhat of a livable statistics, or, you know, way for them to continue on. So starting from the bottom up, I'm very familiar with. But this thing that came around with me this last fall, the kids, we ain't got nothing to do. Man, I have twin boys that were raised in another country in Australia, and they're up in their own world in life and everything. One's a doctor, one's a lawyer. The worst thing I ever heard from my kids was, he says, Jesus, Mom, he says, you always say you hear us, but do you listen? Well, when these kids said, we have nothing to do, and I saw the correlation with all of it, things that the community said to me, I took those words that my kids said and I started listening. When we were working on the deal for the park, going out and talking to people about it, what they were saying about the community, what they were saying, you know, and I go, okay, and I couldn't keep turning in. So, do I have a personal agenda? I want the community to stand up again, and I want them to take it back. And I want to be a part of that in some way, shape, or form. I can sit here and tell you all about my glories and all of that good, happy horse poop, but it doesn't mean anything about today. Thanks.
Thank you, Ms. Nasa. Mr. Castro.
Good evening. My name is Lorenzo Castro. I'm a lifelong resident of Dunsmuir, born and raised here. And to me, this has been my home my whole life. And unlike a lot of people, I never left, you know, outside of when I went to college and returned. Most of you know me. I'm a very active political activist through the Siskiyou County Tea Party and the National Tea Party. So I spend a lot of time getting people to engage themselves in their communities with their governments at different levels, both at, you know, community level, county level, state level, and federal level. My main specialty that I've done is in immigration reform. I spend a lot of time doing that. I mean, to me, this is I do this every day. You know, I don't just go to one meeting and then not think about it. I live this every day at different levels, whether it's, you know, sustainable development or just trying to get communities to be more active in their local governments and hold government accountable. And when I started looking at what was going on in Dunsmuir, you know, one of several communities that I attended their meetings last year, began to notice this change that was occurring where, especially the council here, they quit responding to the needs of the community. They weren't listening to what the community was saying. And that, when you start seeing that, you start seeing the friction develop between the community and the government, the city government. And that, when that starts happening, then things are where we are right now, you know, where they're not listening to what's going on in the community. And one of the things that my forum, of course, you know, is Dunsmuir is a gateway to Siskiyou County. It's one of the most beautiful communities. You know, I've been to communities all over the country, and this is one of the most amazing communities you'll find, both not just because of the community and the rich history it has, but of the people. It's so unique. You know, you can go down and you can walk the streets anytime you want. You know your neighbors. You can actually leave your doors unlocked. You know, and everyone knows everyone. And it's not just because, you know, you're a Republican or you're a Democrat. You know, our ideology is the same. You know, we care about this community, and that's what we have to get back to. You know, we have to get, you know, whoever gets elected, you know, to after the recall, which I fully endorse. You know, we need to reset things. We need to start, you know, looking out for the community. You know, it's not an issue of an individual agenda. This is about the community and about the people that live in it.
Thank you, sir. Okay, my next question, and we'll start off with Ms. Nasa this time, leading off. And this will be a 1-minute question. I want to have a lot of 1-minute questions so we can move along quickly. What is your understanding of the relationship between the city council and the city manager?
Basically, the city manager runs the daily what-to-dos of the business of the city, okay? The city council guides her. If there's things that are coming up, you know, if there's in question that the community as a whole needs to hear, it comes through the council to Brenda, you know, as far as what adjustments may be needed. You know, no, this is what the community wants and needs, so we somehow have to find that in our way. That's what the council is to Brenda, you know, is the information source from the community.
Okay. Mr. Castro?
This community is really unique in that we have both a city manager and a chief financial officer that are one and the same. It's unlike, you know, Mount Shasta, which has 2 separate ones. And the city manager's job is to manage the city, and in her dual position, you know, to oversee the budget for the city. The city council's job is to approve the expenditures of the city. So, you know, they need to work in unison, and she is an asset. She's not, you know, a liability. You know, she is an asset to the community, and that's one thing that I noticed that they were getting away from. You know, it was extreme friction, you know, between council members, not all of them, and City Hall. You know, it was getting worse and worse, where they weren't communicating, and we have to get back to that. They have to listen to her. You know, we're paying her, you know, to manage the city, and their job is to, you know, assist her in that the approval of the expenditures.
Okay. Thank you. Mr. Kelby.
The city council itself is an oversight group. Its main function is to be able to monitor the trends of the community and set the patterns for what we are going to be doing in the future. It must take into consideration the will of the people and for the benefit of the people and for our businesses. With that oversight, they are able to make recommendations to the city manager, who has the skills, the abilities, and in this particular case, the desire to be able to run a city just as it is, a series of corporations that are necessary to keep the city financially stable.
Great, thank you. Mr. Castro, starting the next question. How is it your understanding of how things go onto the agenda? How would you manage if you had something that you wanted to go to the agenda? How would that process go?
I'd present it to the city clerk so they could be posted on the agenda. That way it would be compliant with the government code.
Okay, Mr. Kelby?
The agenda is a very special thing. Again, it's something that is based on the modification to the way that we function or to the recommendations by the council to create certain sets of circumstances that we want to vote on. It also can be presented by the citizens of town that go to their particular counselor. The actual process is that the counselors at a council meeting can suggest items to go on the agenda to be approved, or they can go to, historically in this town, to the mayor and the city manager to discuss, to find out the importance and the actual agenda procedures, and then they go on the agenda. What's important to know is any item on the agenda must first be supported by a staff report that is created totally unbiased and put on it for the benefit of the decision-making process of that council.
Just to let everyone know, whenever the bell goes off, I'll let you finish your sentence, so don't feel like you have to rush to get there. So, okay. Thank you. Ms. Nasa.
Okay. My experiences working with getting things on the agenda has been pretty short and sweet and by the code. You go in, you give it to the county clerk, they decide, you know, okay, this, you know, and have guided me and all of my things, you know, by the code. and talk to Brenda of where it should be placed, and at any point in time, I should be able to walk up to any council person, any one of them, not just one, and make a suggestion, and the council person can then again bring it to, following the code, to Brenda to get it on the agenda.
Great, thank you. Starting off with you, Mr. Kelby, 1 minute question. What is your understanding of what a serial meeting is, and how do you feel about serial meetings?
First, I'll tell you what I feel about serial meetings. Serial meetings are just totally illegal and irresponsible. A serial meeting is nothing more than one or two or more of our counselors. I mean, it requires 3 counselors to create a majority. And if one counselor talks to a second and then talks to a third and maybe even a fourth, that becomes a serial meeting. So they all have previously discussed this topic. That is totally blocking any transparency in government, because it always leads to a commonality in decision by the majority of the council before it ever reaches the public.
Thank you. Ms. Nasa?
One of the things, the serial meetings, like I said in my background, 28 years in search and rescue and all that, serial meetings are necessity. You would have one every day, talking to your crews, talking to the public, and getting it out. The abuse of the system right now that's going on with serial meetings on a personal agenda and that has nothing to do with anything about other than holding up the city is outrageously off the charts. The serial meeting, the way people do their personal agenda and abuse the word spirit of the law. Law is and word of the law are two different things. The law was written for spirit of the law. When somebody takes that spirit and puts it in the toilet, it does not set well with me. Does that answer that?
It sure does. Thank you. Mr. Castro?
Serial meetings are illegal. They are not an emergency meeting, and they are based on a counselor's personal agendas, and they shouldn't be occurring.
Thank you. Ms. Nasa, you're up next. First up, how do you see the city employees? If you're a city council member, how would you look at a person you ran into on the street who worked for the city, whether it was the city manager or one of the people out working on the fields? What do you feel about that? How would you describe the relationship between you as a council member and a city employee?
As a city council person, at any point in time, I can walk up, hey, how you doing? How's your job going? What can we do to make things easier for you? And still, when we make things easier for you, we're getting more accomplished. I like to work my relationships on a psychology thing, I reach out my hand to you, and then you reach back. And I see a lot of that with some of the people that have taken a few minutes to get to know me. Oh, you're not such a bad egg after all, and start to understand that, no, I'm just me. Whenever you see me, that's what I am, is just me.
Thank you. Mr. Castro?
I would see them as the first, probably the people that are representative of the community are, your city employees, and it's very important, to have a good open line of communication between you as a counselor and the city employees at any time you engage them, whether it's members of the fire department, the sheriff's office that are contracted, or public works. We're all, working for the community, and that's why it's very important to have that open dialogue with them, as far as transparency.
Thank you. Mr. Kelby?
I enjoy meeting our employees on the street, wherever the case may be. I look at them just as I do every other citizen in town. They're all out there doing a phenomenal job, and we have the same thing with any of our personal businesses. The relationship with any of the city employees and the city council is actually buffered by their immediate supervisor, which is the city manager. So and that is her responsibility. But our responsibility is to meet and greet them just as we would most of the other citizens and respect them highly for what they do accomplish for our town.
Thank you. I've got a question from the audience. This was something that Mr. Stephen Hawking, who I'm introducing now, he...
Steve
Cutting, I'm sorry.
Stephen Hawking. I wish.
Second mistake today.
Second mistake, you're right. Sorry, Mr. Cutting. That was the, he had a great question. I'm sorry.
Thank you all for coming tonight.
Okay.
My name is Steve Cutting. If elected, do you have personal goals that you want to accomplish? And or what are your feelings about other people's goals, or both?
Yeah, sure, for us. I'm sorry, go ahead, Mr. Castro.
My first goal would be to, support the community. One of my pet projects is to try to get the Mossbrae Trail back on track. I've been talking to a lot of people, and it just like came to a halt about 6 months ago. And, everything is still in place. We just need to open up, the communication again and get that back on board. That is one of the biggest assets we have, to our town. It's one of the biggest draws is Mossbrae, both in the sense of, the fisheries and as a tourist site. And the other thing would be of course, the economic development, try to promote getting, industry to come into the community. And it's not so much the brick and mortar anymore as it is, technology with companies like FireWhat, technology, enhanced companies. There's a lot of them that are willing to move, into rural areas and still run their businesses. And there's a lot of them that come through. And as long as we have a stable, government, they're willing to move in. If it's an unstable government, like what we're seeing just in the last 6 months, where it's, we're getting national media on what's going on with the city council, they're very hesitant about moving to the area. So that's one of the first things to do is, put forward a positive environment for companies to move into Dunsmuir. And, with that will come, we'll get our population built back up and, our schools, and instead of kids, leaving the area, they can stay here and work.
Thank you. Mr. Kelby? Oh, Linda, did I pass you up in the middle there? I don't think so. Mr. Kelby, go ahead.
Oh, so I just...
Yes, these are 1-minute questions. Mr. Kelby, next.
Yeah. The primary thing that I would like to bring to Dunsmuir is a return to civility. Very simple, very straightforward. Along those lines, it would be very beneficial for this community to do two major things. One, in preparation for any participation in our committees, commissions, and council, training in advance of taking those positions would be extremely helpful and would actually be very profitable for our community. The second, or another one of the major reasons that are one of the things I want to bring into, is a very well-developed marketing plan for the development of our community. And that involves, yes, the trail, but yes, on other things like the curb appeal of our entire town, not just one little particular district. Also the cooperation between all our members of our community in developing and promoting all the activities within our town.
Thank you, Mr. Kelby. Linda? Ms. Nasa?
Yeah, my little pet project is this park. One of the things that we have found in listening to the community, what we started with is a situation, and what it is today is totally turned around. And part of it will be hopefully helping with the Mossbrae Falls. We will be working with, hopefully when we get through all of this stuff, building a woodback trail across over to another trail, up to the Craigs, showing them, look how we can work with you guys, what we can do. Everything we're doing is being kept in the natural. That's one of the things. So much has come by listening to the community on how we can plug a lot of holes with little things that we can bring in some competition. This is what we wanted to do with this, bring in a BMX next spring. Things like this that bring people in. We're in what I call a double E's. We have the environment. We didn't get a good winter. We live in a town that survives on its tourism. okay? And then Mother Nature did not help us. The economy isn't helping us. So we have to help ourselves. I've been working with the other communities as well as pulling this up and seeing how much we can bring in with people just on the tourist part. Start small, get bigger, you know, grow with the need. And that's one of the things that I hope that we can bring with the City Council too, bringing the communication from the community to the City Council, to the city, and grow this way, and get away from some of this negativity that's been holding us up on jacks.
Great, thank you. For the next question, I've got a few of the items that have been controversial here in town in the last few years. So what I thought I'd do is just start off. Let's see, where are we now? Who's, I think I got, Dick, you're first now, right?
Okay.
Okay, so Dick, water rates and water infrastructure. What are your take on water rates and water infrastructure in 60 seconds?
In 60 seconds. It's very obvious that the actual physical water plant is unchanged from what it was many years ago. Unfortunately, our population has diminished tremendously, and the drain on that system and the funding for it has also been diminished. So it's very obvious that in order to maintain a system the way we have in the past, we would have to raise rates, and it would go continually higher and higher and higher. So with the current study that is being done, there are two factors being developed. One is a change of the rate structure to be beneficial to each and every person in this town, and equality between all ratepayers, and also to be able to develop a plan for the repair of the system. So what is the most important part of the water rate and our physical water structure would be the education of the population of this town, and the full reasoning and very openly presentation of why we must do it the way we are.
Ms. Neza.
One of the things is that in everybody's mind, geez, we're at the head of the hood, why are we paying the most? You know, but there is a lot of old issues here, you know, the pipe, you know, the water system. There's a lot that needs to be looked at, and a lot needs to be looked into other communities and how they've handled situations like that. I don't have a lot of the information. You've been with the planning committee, so you're a little bit more, and I appreciate that. Being caught up may be a good thing, because I don't get so touched down that tunnel, narrow-minded tunnel. That's the thing. We need to look outside ourselves and find an answer.
Thank you. Mr. Castro.
I'll agree with everything Dick said, you know, because his insight of being on the planning commission. And the important thing is we really have to, you know, educate the community as to why, you know, we're doing what the city's going to do as far as the rate increases, because we're in desperate need of still of repair on the pipe infrastructure, especially in North Dunsmuir. There's just a lot of roots, a lot of issues up there. So by, you know, making the public aware of what the city's doing, I think it'll better inform them. And that way, if there are rate increases, you know, they'll understand why they're taking place.
Great, thank you. Okay, the next question I'd like to be very clear on before I start off. I want to talk about the two items that are on the referendum coming, or that are on the election coming up. One of them is the medical marijuana ordinance. The other one is the city attorney contract. So it's talking about the medical marijuana ordinance. I'd like to limit this, stay away from any talk about whether medical marijuana is good or bad. That'll take a long time, and it's off our beaten path here as city council people. So what I'd like to ask is, what is your view on the medical marijuana ordinance and its repeal? Starting off with Ms. Neza.
It never should have happened, period. What they did with putting this referendum in is hurt the actual word of medical marijuana. The state law is, you know, presides over all of us. If it would have been left alone, there's people in this town that have been growing for 20, 30, 40, and 50 years. Not would have been an issue. We had two A-type personalities who made this a city issue. It never should have happened.
Thank you. Mr. Castro?
In regards to that, I think that we should have gone the direction of utilizing the Planning Commission, which is in a better position to control a lot of the grows, especially the open grows, which I'm completely against. I have no issues with, you know, medical marijuana for personal use, but the open grows are a negative factor to this community. It just brings more crime, you know, the stench that's brought into this canyon, it's not needed. It's just something that I will not back off on. That open grows, I'm totally against, and that's one of the reasons I feel that, you know, we can utilize the Planning Commission in that area to cover that, not the City Council.
Thank you. And speaking of the Planning Commission, Planning Commissioner can talk to us about it now. What do you? How's your answer?
The cultivation of marijuana is a land use issue only. It has nothing to do with a person's individual needs. What it has to do is with your respect to your neighbors and the businesses in your neighborhood. That is the only thing that must be considered when you're talking about cultivation of marijuana. So the ordinance, the way it was written, was constructed by an entire committee of all phases of the community, and it was quite an extensive period of time, and the results were a ordinance that satisfied the needs of the neighbor and yet satisfied the requirements of the 215 user. So my feeling is that it should never have been repealed because it detracted from the sanctity of those neighborhoods and the health, safety, welfare of the individuals that don't use it, and it affects the businesses in those neighborhoods.
Thank you. Mr. Castro, you're up first this time. What is your view on the relationship of the City Council to the City Attorney, and assuming that you were elected on June 3rd, what would you do with regards to the position of the City Attorney?
I'd repeal the current contract, and I would put it out to bid. I would hire an interim city attorney to cover until we can go through the process of not only the City Council, but having a citizens committee as an oversight in the selection of a new city attorney.
Thank you. Mr. Kelby.
The actual job of the city attorney is to advise on legal matters, and it should be limited to that. Currently, to this point, up until this point, it was only when there was questions necessary that would prevent the city from making grievous errors, actually, and that's what he should be doing. He should be advising on that only. Currently, the contract given takes over too many responsibilities of what the city manager's function is and should never have occurred.
Thank you. Ms. Nasa.
It was illegally written. It should be taken down, just like Mr. Castro said, should be put out for publicly and abide by the city local hiring laws. What he's done is just a travesty. He just gave an example of his credibility as an attorney. Thank God we got a preview of that, folks. You know, I mean, Jesus, with $14,000 in less than 6 weeks, Leslie only got $9,000 out of Kenny in a year. I see how that figures in there. But the thing is, one more time, it's a negative spot here in Dunsmuir, and the public wasn't followed by the book. The public don't like it. Nothing's right with the public, and they're speaking up.
Thank you. I have a question from the audience from Mr. Osborne. Would you introduce yourself and ask the question, starting off with Mr. Kelby?
My name is Robert Osborne, resident of Dunsmuir here for lifetime. The question I have for the prospective members is, what is your understanding of the California open meeting laws? And if you saw someone approach a council member or saw something that you knew was wrong, how would you react to it?
The California open meeting laws, or the Brown Act, basically covers that, and that is to provide total transparency to the population. Approaching, if I saw something occurring that is wrong, for instance, a serial meeting in process, or if I just saw two members talking and one of those comes to me as a third person that would make a majority, I would not would prefer not to discuss anything with that person, but only allow that to be brought before the council as a whole, in public.
Thank you. Ms. Nasa?
In serial meetings, anything that is done is go straight up to the Siskiyou County Voters Board. Go straight to the horse's mouth is what I have done with it. One of the things, and they've always given me good direction, bring it back to the city manager and bring it to the mayor, bring it to the attention of. I've always found that in my career, always go to and stick with the people before you go back ahead, before you bring it back to the city level. In this experience, that's what I did with that. That's why everything that I've been doing is just documenting. That was what was advised to me, and then bring it forth, and that's what I've done. When it can be most available. Some of the voting laws and things that go around that are sketchy at best, and so I followed suit, and I also followed the state voters.
Mr. Castro. I'll agree with the same that the two candidates have both said on that. I was just talking to the League of Cities in Sacramento, and I'm having them send up a manual which is for city officials, and it's approximately, I think it's about 58, 60 pages. So I'll present it at one of the meetings, and then that way they can make copies of it to each one of the councilmen. But it's just the guideline that's used on, what you do, what you don't do. And County Council offers to all boards in Siskiyou County free training on Brown Act guidelines. So that's available to any board or any city council in Siskiyou County free of charge.
Thank you. I'm going to try something a little strange here. I'd like to have a little play acting. So starting off with Ms. Nasa, there's a camera right there. Talk to the citizens out there and tell them how you'd like to hear from, how they can get in touch with you, and the relationship you'd like to build with them as citizens if you're elected. 1 minute. 1 minute.
You see me on the street, you walk up and say hi. That's the best way to communicate with me. I'm horrible with electronics. You want my phone number, it would be down at the city council office, and leave a message that way. As far as computers and Facebook, God help me, it makes me sick to even turn them on right now, but I'm not even on a good day, I'm not even really good with that. So that would be my best thing. I'm never open to a conversation on what's going on. Hi, how you doing? One of the things best trait my dad left me, I can walk into a room of 1,000 people and have a conversation within an hour with half of them. Maybe not to a lot of good or ado, but one of the things that I apply with that concept in life is each one of those people has something important to say. Remember it. Somewhere it's going to come out, and it's going to be a useful information.
Thank you. Mr. Castro?
You could contact me just either by calling my residence. You can call me on my cell phone. You can contact the city. I'm not a big fan of Facebook. One of the first things they'll tell you, if you're going to go into politics, stay off Facebook. You can use it as a guide. Stay off of it. Your job is to represent the community, and if they need to get a hold of you, they can either do it by snail mail, email, they can call you, they can leave a message at City Hall, but you can always be available to the public, 24/7.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Kelby?
I don't like the 24/7 bit, but I am always available. I mean, anybody that sees me around can stop me, talk to me. Most of the people in this town have no problem knowing where I live. If they do, my phone number is not unlisted and my address appears in the phone book. So, I mean, gee, just pick it up and see me. You come out my house, knock on my door. Please do it during reasonable hours, but I have no problem otherwise. See me on the street? I love to talk. And I try to express maybe my personal feelings, but also the feelings of the entire council when I discuss things, because there are things in this town that maybe that I don't particularly have a penchant for enjoying. However, if the greater good of this town and the will of the people says this is what we want, I'm afraid I'm going to support it too. So I'm available to anybody. I've got an email address that very few people address, but they could right now for the campaign. And if anybody wants it, I'll give it to them. And I'll be glad to answer your questions, one-on-one. I love it.
Thank you. Mr. Castro, let's assume now that we're sitting in a meeting, the meeting's over with, Thursday City Council meeting, and you've got 2 weeks to the next regular meeting. How do you see yourself, what will you be doing during that week to prepare yourself for that next meeting? What do you imagine yourself doing during that week to prepare in terms of learning what needs to be learned to do your job?
I'd be waiting for, packets that are being presented, to the council members. Responding to email. My email on the average runs me around 5,000 emails a week, so I'm into the morning hours always answering things on different projects that I'm working on. But it's always just preparation. I mean, it never ends for me. I've got to be at a meeting here in about 15 minutes in Mount Shasta. I've got to attend that one, then I've got to come back. So, it's just always, just preparation. You have to look at all the facts. You listen to the people. You look at the packets that are presented to the council members. You look at budgets. You look at, you want to keep yourself well informed, and you want to listen to the public. That's the most important thing. Listen to the community. Listen to what they're saying. That's the most important thing.
Thank you. Mr. Kelby.
After the meeting is probably one of the most enjoyable parts of it. And one of the things that I'm very, very conscious of is when an item on the agenda switches from new business to old business. And usually if you attend the council meetings and there's quite a bit of conversation about whatever's on the new business, and personally, I want to see that on old business, but in the meantime, I look at equality from the people. Now, usually people that are rejecting to an item speak out the loudest. So if I look at 20 people speaking out against an item, I purposefully go out and during that period of time find 20 people of the opposite side that are for it, discuss it with them, and then be able to make a very conscious effort to be able to come up with a consensus of what the people really want to, so that I could present that.
Thank you. Ms. Nesa.
Right after the city council meeting, I don't want to walk out and remind myself that I am nothing more than just a citizen that has been entrusted to carry these people's word on what they bring your word forward. The thing is on Monday when it rolls around and Brenda's got the thing done, the packets are usually there, then homework starts. Whatever's going on, and and listen to the people. Like I said, I'm one, people walk up to me, they see me when I'm working, and I got cement from head to toe and yuck from everywhere. They still know that they can talk to me. They see me dressed in my hip slicking coals, they still know I'm the same person. And
5 minutes, so I'm going to do one more 1-minute question. Then I'll let him get 2 minutes to say his closing statement, and then we'll talk on a little bit further with some other questions. Is that okay?
Yeah.
Okay, Mr. Kelby, what is your take on the community garden and the relationship between the city and private space?
The community garden is a very good effort to be able to join people in the community to do some good. The greatest asset to this community from that would be the education of the children or the people that live basically in apartments that do not have the ability to have a large garden. Box you can do on private property is very, very nice to have that piece of property given to or loaned to a community garden. I have a little difficulty of using, in my thoughts, of using community equipment, but to supply those to something that would turn into a private function later.
Thank you. Ms. Nesa.
I agree that also a community garden is definitely, a good tool to help kids, but there's also other locations. That's the thing, we seem to find ourselves in a narrow tunnel, and not look outside. There's other locations that you can move this garden, and be just as successful. And
Mr. Castro, and then when you're done with this question.
Fully support the community gardens. I've been involved with them through Shasta Commons up in Mount Shasta, And there they work really good, but on a voluntary basis. The city isn't involved with them. It's all private. And they work really, really well. They utilize orchards throughout Mount Shasta. They utilize trees that have fruit on them. And nothing is left to rot. You know, it's utilized by all the members that are part of the association. So it is a positive direction they're going with it. You know, but again, you know, we need to leave the city out of it, you know, and utilize the volunteer organizations that support those gardens, and they really are an asset to the community for everyone.
Thank you. And so the way I'll pose this question to you, and I'll do it to them later on after we're a little further along, you have 3 candidates here. Why do you think you're a better candidate than the other 2? Why should they vote for you? 2 minutes.
I think that, you know, when you ask that question of a person, you want to look at everyone. Everyone that's up here, you know, is putting themselves, you know, on the line, especially with what's going on in the city. And I ask, you know, everyone, you look at the community first, you know. Thank you, you know, for your involvement, for engaging, you know, not only us but our government in this town, you know. And one of the reasons I ask people, you know, well, why do you want to run for a city councilman? Are you crazy? I said, no, you know, I want to represent the community. I want to listen to people. You know, that's what I do. I do it every day. You know, and that's one of the reasons, you know, people ask, well, you know, why should we vote for you? I said, because I'll represent you. I'll listen to you and the community. And it's not just all about the government, you know, it's about the people.
Thank you. Before you leave, I'd like to say one thing so I can say it to all 3 of you. I want to remind everybody that after this election and one of these people, hopefully, is elected to office and starts serving, we immediately have to start looking for a July 16th deadline for coming up with 3 candidates for the next election in November. So as you're looking at these 3 individuals, and you're looking at what you want to do on Tuesday, keep in mind that 2 of these could also end up with us down the line. We'll want to look at other people too, but just keep that in mind. So I think we have all 3 and show themselves well. Thank you, Mr. Castro, and if you don't mind, we'll just continue with a few more questions.
One thing before I leave it,
sure.
You know, with the other election coming up, you know, in the fall, you know, if any of you are interested, please, you know, run, you know, engage. You know, we don't want to have where we're just having councilman after councilman, you know, we have to have term limits, and it's really good to get people in the community. You don't have to be a politician, you know, you don't have to be a public speaker. You just have to be someone that cares about their community, and that's what's really important. So, you know, think about that, you know, when you look at the next time that, you know, go around with the city council.
Thank you. Take a little bit of break, and
we're going to start with 6:15 or
6:50. 6:50 over there.
6:50 at City Hall or whatever it is.
And you have cameras set up down there too, don't you?
No.
Not yet.
Oh,
No. We think that one might get billed, so they'll be back here.
So we're going to take just about a 2-minute break while he steps out, and then we'll get back with the other 2 candidates here. Thank you, Mr. Okay, we're back with part 2 of the debate between the now 2 candidates. Mr. Castro had to leave. And so what I'll do now is we'll ask a couple more questions of the 2 candidates, 1-minute questions, and then at about 10 minutes from now, we'll switch over to closing statements, and each candidate will have 2 minutes for closing statements. So the first question I have is, name 2 different projects that you think would be good to undertake for economic development for the city. And let's start with Dick first, and then we'll go there. 2 projects that you think will help with economic development for the city you'd like to support if you were on the council.
The first would be a very, very well-defined marketing plan for the city. We cannot be successful in this town unless we have a defined direction that we're going to go and a proper technique in which to go. The second project that I would like to see, it may sound a little strange, but I would love to be able to develop one of the greatest assets that we have, and that is the freeway. And it sounds kind of strange when I say that, but what happens is this. What can we do to gather just 0.5% of those cars going up the highway to stop in this town? You know how many people that would be in this town each day? About let's see, I calculated it one day, that would be just about 100 to 150 additional people in this town, and that would start a tremendous boon to our restaurants and our stores, and just any interest in our parks would be developed with that. So that would be my second project.
Thanks, and I'll be a little liberal with time here just because we just have the two of them, so. Okay, Ms. Nasa?
One of the main projects that I've been working on is started with the bringing people into this town. The park out there, also known as the Hobo Camp, is to bring people in. And with working with the other communities and states, like I've set this up for this summer, that will bring people in. For every 50 people that comes in here, $10 comes into the city. That's a small number, I know, but if you sit and think about it, it's not too far from it. Those 50 people will bring $10, each one of them, into this town somehow. Stop for a soda, grab a beer, whatever, when they're out playing disc golf. This is all stuff that has very minimal overhead. The Boy Scouts will be helping us get it together. It's that simple of a community project. Things like this, that hopefully in the 5-year plan that we have put this together, we will be bringing in people that will be filling these businesses one by one. That's what it is, that, and hopefully getting us to open up the communications with the Mossberry, like I said to Mr. Lorenzo Castro, that you'll see what we're talking about, what we can do. We've worked with the railroad on this one. Let's work with them up here again.
Thank you. Some people may not be aware of it, but one of the items on the agenda for the City Council is the adoption of something called the Mount Shasta Protocols. And I'd like to ask each of the candidates, now starting with Ms. Nasa, what is your understanding of what protocols are, and what are your view of adopting the Mount Shasta Protocols as they are being presented?
Protocols, nutshell it up, are, the basic guideline of how you run the meeting. There's not, and they are followed by code.
Just to be clear, beyond the meeting, I'm also talking about the overall protocols for how to run the city, is what I'm saying.
Exactly. That it all comes down to, you still have to, just like in this park, we have not just Dunsmuir City, we're going to have to deal with the state, we're going to have to deal with the federal government, we're going to have to deal with all of these and reach and understand all of their, and do their laws, followed by the book. Those are the protocols, guidelines, so to say, that you have to do with building a city up. And like I had said, with being with the International Red Cross, we did that. We stayed there. We helped the city pull back together, get their resources back in line so that they could, have baselines and then grow from there. And some of it was done minimally, but some of it was done a lot differently. All depends on the situation. That's just it. You can't follow with one set of guidelines that fits everything. You have to be able to fluctuate, as I call it.
Okay. Mr. Kelby?
Yes, we do need protocols. There's no doubt about that. We have some protocols already in existence, and we also have ordinance that directs some of the activities in the community. I have taken some considerable length of time reading the Mount Shasta protocols. There are some considerable differences between what we need and what is in there. For instance, there is one section in there that offers a salary, benefits to the city council members. This is totally against our budget and totally against our policies and totally against our ordinances. If we want to adopt a set of policies based on the Mount Shasta protocols, what we need to do is form a committee that is totally unbiased and represents all phases, take what our past is, what our ordinances say, what our previous protocols say, and derive a set of protocols that would be beneficial to this community.
Thank you. I'll ask one more question, and I'll take advantage of this moment to tee it up a little bit. I'd like Dick to start off with describing your view of our city manager and CFO, Brenda Baines.
Phenomenal. I have never seen a person nor worked with a person that has had such love for a community as she does. She has phenomenal abilities as a CFO, and she has a tremendous amount of talent for taking all the resources at her disposal, combining them for the benefit of this community. She runs this town beautifully. Bless her.
Thank you. Ms. Nasa?
Ditto. I mean, you can't say anything better other than the fact it'd be a crying shame for this town to lose her. I mean, this woman has an insight, and Brenda is one of those that you watch her and she has a drive in her eye, you know, it's like, hold on, I got an idea. She goes with it and she comes back with an answer. Here it is, here's the solution. And that's what you like in somebody that knows her business, knows how to look at all different angles of it, and come back with, this is it, this is the best ticket for us.
Okay, and let's talk one other subject close by. Ms. Nasa, back to you then, starting on this one. What would you look for in a relationship with a city attorney? What would you think that a city attorney you would like to look at that relationship with the council?
Right off the bat, I'd like to have one that has some experience with being a city attorney, not one that has experience of being a real estate questionable entrepreneur. I would really like to see somebody that has leading a city in a correct, you know, guidelines with the laws. You know, that's what the city attorney is for, that we can go on our way. Whoa, 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 you're getting off course here, guys. Pull us back in line where the laws go. And that one that sees what Dunsmuir is, who we are, and doesn't try to rape us.
Mr. Kelby.
I'm going to go back to Brenda for just a minute, because it's my feeling, and I have experienced this already, that if I have a question that may involve legality or an attorney being present, I first go to the city manager. She is the wise ruler of our town. From there, I discuss it with her, or any counselor should discuss it with her, and then, if needed, with permission from Brenda or the recommendation from Brenda, go to that attorney, state your case very clearly, and wait for a decision. The attorney should be just an advisor. He should not be a controller.
Thank you. Okay, so what we'll do now is we'll switch over to the closing statements. You'll each have 2 minutes to say why you of the three should be elected. So we'll start with Mr. Kelby.
Okay, mine, I don't even think I'm going to go a full 2 minutes. Hopefully you know or understand or have picked up tonight that I have considerable experience in working within the city of Dunsmuir. I am very familiar with the protocols. I'm very familiar with the laws. I'm very familiar with the general plan and all the ordinances. I'm also familiar with the way this town functions in relation to the people. All the three of us sitting here tonight have a very, very deep concern for the town of Dunsmuir and want to see it survive and grow. What I can offer is, since this is a midterm election and we are faced with a current council that has two very inexperienced counselors, one I don't even think should be on the council, so we actually need experience in the function of a council and the function of a committee or the function of commissions in relation to the city itself. I bring that experience.
Thank you. Ms. Nasa.
One of the things granted I am an outsider to Dunsmuir, but that's one of the things that is also an attribute to me. I've worked, I lived down in Santa Cruz for 12 years, and when we went through the earthquake, Santa Cruz changed regardless if they wanted to or not. So did San Juan Bautista, so did Watsonville. All those towns were crushed during the earthquake. One of the things that I watched in there is I watched the personality. Like I said, I follow the psychological side of communities, because that kind of gives you the irony, it gives you a really neat way of direction for growth. When I saw that in Dunsmuir and I saw what was going on in this community, with the city council, it's like, shake me silly, and I didn't want to get involved, but I did. Because just like, no, I haven't worked in the city. I haven't been in the mix of this old battle. No, but I have a clear vision for a way of getting us out of the battle without fighting it. I'm not the one that's fighting the old battle. I want to see movement forward. I want to work to move the community forward as a whole. They do. They don't want to keep fighting this old battle. The recall, I support tremendously. It needs to be happening. If nothing else, to say this town, we want it back. damn it, we're tired of this. If nothing else they say to that, that's what we needed to have happen. I want to bring in some small businesses one at a time, grow, but I don't want us to change our heritage. That's what the community as a whole wants. I have the drive with the people. That's what they want, let's follow it. We as adults got us into this mess. This park can be a great way for the kids to show us how to get out. And that's what I'm working on, moving the town forward with the same attitude of, yes, we can. The only thing we can't do is bury our enemies.
Thank you. So why don't we give all three candidates a hand for the job they did tonight? And keep those hands ready. We also have to thank the three people that put this show on. Everything we see right here is thanks to Mark Ostrom, Mario Rubino, and Rice Man back there. Now remember, we have the election on June 3rd. We ask everybody to do everything they can to call people, call as many people, spread the word. We've got a lot that we've learned in the last couple of months, and we're on the verge of making a big difference. Remember that if you want to get caught up on things, you can stop by the Facebook at the Dunsmuir Political Forum and Cocktail Hour and get a chance to learn more about what you can do to help. And looking forward to the future, I think, with the three candidates we saw here tonight. I think we saw a really good chance that we can make a difference and move forward with the city and leave behind all these other things. So I appreciate all they've done for us here. Yes.
One thing, there is a regularly scheduled city council meeting here with a new city council member, June 5th. The reason why I want to say this is our park is going to be on the agenda for hopefully to permission to use the property. I encourage all of you who is interested to go on Dunsmuir Community. Okay, here we go. Dunsmuir Community Multi-Purpose Outdoor, and you'll get an idea of what we're working at, and Guy Shoup will be doing a top-notch 5-year presentation for you here on that night to get it passed through the City Council.
Thank you, and that's the end of our debate.